What's going on, everybody? Today we'll be taking a more in-depth look into how to make nostalgic drum and bass. Typically on this channel, I like to make quick and easily digestible tutorials in a way to try and create almost like a quick blueprint to help y'all the next time y'all make a drum and bass track. But today we'll be going a little bit deeper in the genre, covering everything from how to write chord progressions, melodies, counter melodies, and everything in between to answer some of the most asked questions I get when it comes to drum and bass. So buckle up, grab your snacks, and let's get right into it with the first step I take, which is writing our chord progression. I specifically chose a Rhodes piano to write the foundation of this project because I found they play very well with a ton of chord extensions, which can really help give us that nostalgic vibe. Now, this chord progression might look complicated to some, but I promise y'all it is so incredibly easy to write. The first step I take in writing my chord progression is obviously choosing my first chord. Initially, I started with this D sharp minor 7 chord. But I of course want to spice things up a bit more, so the first thing I did was to try to shift some of the notes we already have in this chord up an octave. And I thought this A sharp worked very well. This not only makes the chord progression more interesting, it also helped give me the melodic idea that the chords eventually followed, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next step. The next addition I made to the chord progression was to layer in another D sharp in the chord but up an octave. While the addition of this note is subtle, it gives us a nice clustered sound to the chord that I thought fit the vibe we're going for very nicely. Now, what did I do for the rest of the progression? I basically just used this first initial chord as a quote-unquote shape for all the other chords. You can see this if I layer that first chord over the other 3 chords. They all are more or less the same exact shape with a couple notes moved around here and there. Then the final step I took to writing this chord progression was building up more of that top melody we have going on with the inversions we used. Because we shifted the 5th of all of our chords up an octave, it's almost like we have a melodic phrase going on in this progression. So I thought it would be cool to add small melodic phrases and accents here and there to help tie things together a bit more. The first one I used was this kind of running arp thing, which I love to do on pianos and Rhodes because when you overlap the notes like I do here, you once again get this really cool clustered sound with really simple phrases. And then I just played 2 notes at the end of our progression to help it connect back to our first chord and to make sure things didn't get too stale or boring. Alright guys, I apologize, that took us too damn long. Now the next step I take on these tracks is usually to get our drums ready. I started off by loading in this Bulldozer Amen break I got from a kit on Reddit into Slice X and messing around with the chops a little bit. I don't do anything too crazy here honestly, I just try to keep the drum and bass rhythm we all know and love while having some variation here and there. Then once I have a pattern I'm happy with, I simply just layer my own drum samples following the same pattern. Alright, now that we have that drum bass feel added onto the song, we can go back and continue working on our melody, specifically our counter melody. Since this is a counter melody, I didn't want to go too crazy here. I just found a rhythm that I liked and thought played off our progression nicely and basically just repeated it every 2 bars, changing some notes here and there to make sure I'm not clashing with the original chord layers. Very simple pattern and honestly something I don't put as much thought into as other elements of the song. I'm really only focusing on the rhythm here and making sure I'm not playing anything that will have clashing notes with our chord progression. Next up we have our ambience layers, aka our pads and arps. This is a crucial step to making something sound nostalgic because those late 90s and early 2000s vibes were filled with ambient lush sounds. On this song specifically I only really used 2 sounds to achieve this, but this is kind of cheating because these Nexus presets have like 3 layers built into each patch. I tried to channel this type of vibe into my latest Vital preset bank, which you can download with the link in the description entirely for free. The first preset I chose has a lush pad layer with a drowned out arp that plays sparsely. Sparsely? I don't know. I also dumbed down the chords on these ambient layers because, like I mentioned earlier, while the Rhodes plays very well with more clustered, closed voicings, these pads did not, so I got rid of some notes here and there to make them sound a bit clearer. And then the second layer is just a good old-fashioned lush pad. I will give y'all a bit of a pointer here. These sounds specifically didn't have a ton of low end or low mid buildup, but typically lush pads will have a ton of mud in them that can really clutter up your mixes, so make sure you're going in and taming those frequencies to stop any nasty muddy buildups in your track. Alright, now we finally get onto our main melody. Here I use two presets for the main melody. One E-piano that has a nice chill vibe to it, and then the second layer is a super bright piano preset with a long reverb and delay. I do this specifically so that I can introduce the main melody in the intros and pre-choruses with the chill piano to get listeners used to the melody, while only really using the bright piano preset to bring an extra level of energy and excitement to the choruses. Now, similarly to how I write my counter melodies, I am really just trying to get something fairly repetitive with an interesting rhythm. The main melody here is super simple and plays almost a little call and response with the accent layer we added in our chord progression. I think what really helps bring this melody forward is the super ambient piano sound. Since it has such a long reverb and a ton of delay, it really adds some nice ambience to the track, even though it is a super simple melody overall. It is a really nice trick I like to use on smaller melodic phrases, especially in songs with this type of style, where I am essentially just using a super long reverb and delay to help fill in the empty spaces of our track, helping us achieve a really nice atmospheric vibe from incredibly simple phrases. Alright, you thought we were probably done with melodic layers, but no. As you can see, I like to write way too many melodies in my songs, so to save you some time, yes, I do have another counter melody here. This one here specifically, I was just trying to add some added excitement and rhythm to the song by using a triangle lead drowned in reverb and then putting a tremolo effect on it. I found this is kind of like a cheat code for counter melodies, since the tremolo effect adds both a cool rhythm to our track while also making it very obviously a background layer and taking it away from the front of the song, if that makes sense. And now, finally, after all that, last but definitely not least, our bass. A solid, tight, consistent bass is such a crucial part of my drum and bass tracks, and typically I just use my own shiesty sub bass from my Liquify sample pack, because I just know it's gonna give me that 100% of the time. But I had this Nexus bass playing this bass line from the very beginning of the project, and I thought it was doing a wonderful job as is, so I just kept it. Super simple bass line here. I'm just following the root notes of the chord progression and adding these little octave runs to lead into the next note every time. And that is how to make nostalgic drum and bass. I try to dive as deeply into every section of the song with as much detail as possible without making this video insanely long and boring. But maybe you want a bit more info on how to make drum and bass patterns. Luckily, I have a video dedicated solely to that topic if you're interested. Or maybe you want a bit more of a deep dive on the steps I take to writing more cohesive chord progressions. I also have a video dedicated just to that. If y'all have any other video suggestions y'all want to see, please feel free to leave them down in the comments. Thank y'all so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope to see y'all in the next one.